We are a few weeks removed from the 2025 trade deadline, arguably the biggest trade deadline in maybe sports history. And I just kind of wanted to check in and see how these new additions or subtractions are looking for the teams that were active at the 2025 deadline. So, what is going on, everybody? A lot of people in the last episode said I say today too much, so I'm going to try to stop saying what is going on, everybody. How is everybody doing today? So this may be the final time that you guys hear those words uttered from me, at least here on the Just Ballin' podcast. And yeah, hope you guys are having a great day. And we are going to be just kind of breaking down the 2025 trade deadline aftermath. I have just basically, if you're watching on YouTube, like the last 15 games up for every single NBA team so far. So some of these are going to be with the trade deadline acquisition. Some are going to be without. Teams have all not played 15 games since the deadline. It's just an arbitrary number that we're just going to look. And yeah, we're just going to talk about almost every team today. Like, we're probably not going to talk about some teams that were irrelevant in a way at the deadline. They didn't really have to make any moves, but we could briefly mention if they've been playing well over the last few weeks or have not been playing well. And then there's definitely going to be at least 3 teams I'm going to talk about that really weren't too active at the deadline that I think should have been active. So yeah, we could just start off with, the best team in the NBA for not just the last 15 games, but basically throughout the whole regular season. They have the best record in the NBA, and that is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who made a notable trade at the deadline, acquiring DeAndre Hunter from the Atlanta Hawks for basically Karis LeVert, who actually hasn't been that bad. Like, we'll get to the Hawks later, and George Niang had a good game the other night, and a few second-round picks. I believe it was 3, and then 2 pick swaps, which I doubt are going to convey. It's basically a swap best. So Atlanta, like, that would be useful to Atlanta if Atlanta's better at any point in the next 4 years throughout those 2 years than Cleveland is, which I highly doubt that's going to happen the way that these teams' directions are going. And Hunter has fit like a glove in this Cleveland Cavaliers offense and defense. So he's played 10 games for them. He's shooting 50% from the field, 52% from 3, 86% from the free throw line, 15 points and 4 rebounds. And honestly, his numbers are looking better than I thought. I thought his numbers, like at least the counting numbers, were going to drop a little bit given his usage in Atlanta and how much that was going to change going from maybe the second leading scorer with Jalen Johnson out to maybe the 4th most important guy on the offensive end. Because his usage rate in Atlanta was 24%. That's dropped to 19% in Cleveland, which makes total sense. But he is, like I said, fit like a glove for this team. Over their last, their 10 games that he's played in for this team, they're 10-0. Oh my God. Every single game DeAndre Hunter has played in, they have won. I did not expect that. I thought maybe they've lost with him so far, but no, they've won every single game with him in the lineup, which is kind of incredible. I can't lie. And Donovan Mitchell has missed some time. Some of the bigs have missed some time, and Hunter has just stepped up on both ends of the floor. I think he's a good help defender for this team, and that's why they wanted to acquire him, to get somebody that's a better defender than Niang or Karis LeVert, 6'8", can switch, and can play out there with Dean Wade too at times, because Wade has been a good defender this year, and it provides a little bit of a defense behind Mitchell and Garland. Like, not the greatest defensive backcourt in the world, but a little bit of more, pressure off of the bigs in the front court. So he can maybe pick somebody up before they get to the last line of defense of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, which is a great line of defense, but it kind of gives them a good middle spot with DeAndre Hunter. And I think this was a phenomenal trade for them. I think I love the fact that they didn't go after an expiring contract. So I was like, Jimmy Butler, I kind of hate that idea. But if you can get Cam Johnson, or if you can get, I thought about Hunter for a little bit actually for them, that's just under contract. This team is eventually going to get very expensive kind of soon, because you have Mitchell's extension, you have Mobley's extension kicking in, Allen got extended, Garland's under that rookie extension, and Hunter is making a decent amount of money. It wasn't too long ago we thought he was a little bit overpaid at this time last year, but if he could stay healthy, he can really be a valuable piece for this Cavs team in the playoffs, and that's why they acquired him. He's played just in 3 playoff series. In 2021 against the Knicks, he was all right against them. He played 5 games there, played 5 games against the that would be against the Sixers in round number 2 that year. Or no, he didn't actually. Yeah, he didn't play against the Sixers or the Bucks. Forgot about that. He ended up getting hurt. Then he played against the 2022 would have been the Heat, I believe, in that round 1 series. Yeah, and then the 2023 series would have been against the Boston Celtics. So yeah, Hunter, good ad for the Cavs. It's fit like a glove. He's 27 years old. He's under contract for the next 3 years. This has been one of the best deadline pickups. Kind of it's up there. We'll get to the Los Angeles guy in a little bit, but in terms of a role-playing pickup that didn't really cost them a lot, it was a fantastic trade. Next up, we could stay in the Eastern Conference, and we could talk about the Milwaukee Bucks, who have been kind of on a tear as of late, 8-2 in their last 10. They picked up Kyle Kuzma at the deadline. Now, I didn't love the addition of Kyle Kuzma. I think I still would have ran out Chris Middleton a little bit, and he got off to a little bit of a rough start shooting the ball. I mean, over the last 12 games for the Bucks, they are 9-3, which is really good. I can't see their net rating here, but he kind of got off to a little bit of a rough start. And then I was checking his numbers after the Dallas game, and I'm like, oh, his efficiency really hasn't changed much, but he has shot the ball well over his last 2 games against Atlanta and then Dallas again, and they're on a 4-game winning streak right now. Kuzma does give at least somebody that, I mean, he has been healthy. Like, he hasn't really been banged up in his career, and he's somebody that can at least be an off-ball creator or initiator. I kind of like his passing ability in a way, but I don't really think he was a massive upgrade over Chris Middleton, who, like, we're going to get to Washington. I kind of love their deadline for an indirect reason, but at least Kuzma is under contract because it could be a little bit more tradable. $24 million this year, $22 million next year, $20 million in year 3. And this, I guess the big reason too, they got under the second apron, which allows so much more flexibility going forward. And we'll see how Kuzma's going to be in a playoff series. We'll see how he's going to be during the final end of the season. Them getting Giannis back has been huge, and he's stepped up at times with Bobby Portis being suspended, which is kind of crazy, came out of nowhere. And Dame has been very good this year as well. So honestly, I don't think the Bucks would have any initial regret. I mean, it's such a small sample size after this deal went down, but I don't think this has been the worst trade. I didn't like when it happened. It's not growing on me, but I don't think it's been a catastrophe yet. I think it's been fine, and we're going to see how he's going to perform late in the year in the playoffs next year, and we'll have a larger sample to see how this is going to look. Obviously, there was Chris Middleton regression. I think also Middleton might be better than Kuzma now, but this offer may not be on the table in the offseason, and I think there's a higher chance that Kuzma is more impactful for the Bucks next year than Chris Middleton would have been as an almost 35-year-old. He would have been 34 next year. So I think Milwaukee is fine with this trade and how it's worked out. They also got Jericho Sims at the deadline. He put up, I don't know if it was a career high, but he put up 10 points. No way that's a career high, right? I don't know. I mean, he's been in the league for a while. I can actually quickly see if that is a career high. Now, he put up 10 points as a rookie for the Knicks. In year number 2 for the Knicks, his season high was 12. Okay, so it was not a career high, but he had 10 points and 8 rebounds. A lot of it, or some of it could have been garbage time as well. But yeah, they picked up Jericho Sims. It's another body. Injuries can happen. So I think Sims is a fine, third center in your rotation, and they'll have some depth when Bobby Portis gets back. And he's 26. The Knicks have barely used DeLon Wright. So I think that was a fine trade for the Milwaukee Bucks. Next up, we could talk about the Detroit Pistons. They were quieter at the deadline than I expected, but they basically got Dennis Schroeder for nothing. And I think just getting a 31-year-old veteran in that room that can at least be a better backup point guard and ball handler than Marcus Sasser was a huge pickup for this team as they're trying to kind of make some noise in the Eastern Conference. They're currently 35-28. They're the 6th seed. I mean, we'll get to the Knicks. I actually don't really know if we'll get to the Knicks that much, but Brunson just hurt his ankle last night, and I watched the first half, and they were winning, and I said, I'm going to sleep. I'm here on the East Coast. I wasn't staying up for this team to inevitably blow the lead. I feel like they don't perform well against LeBron, or at least the Lakers, ever. It feels like they lost to them at the Garden earlier in the year, and then Brunson rolls his ankle, and I would have stayed up for them to lose in overtime. I would have been very upset. But back to the Pistons here, who I've just loved watching this year. I've been kind of locked into them as of late. They're 10-2 over their last 12 games. Schroeder for them has played... He's played 10 games, so let me look at their 10-game record with Schroeder, and that would be 8-2. So incredible stuff they've been over the last 10 games. I mean, he hasn't been a great shooter, not the best offensive player since he left Brooklyn. It's funny how his efficiency just cratered in Golden State, and it's been a little bit better in a small sample size there in Detroit, but I like Schroeder in this role. I like him in a backup point guard role. You're not going to need him to play too much. 20 minutes a night, can play out there with Cade, can play without Cade, and it's just a guy in that locker room. And I think that was the big part of why the Pistons have had this success this year. Yes, the young guys have stepped up, but Malik Beasley, at times Tim Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris, Dennis Schroeder, and just getting these veterans and older guys in the locker room is what they desperately needed. And I think Troy Weaver, I don't know, I would have liked to see him get another shot. I don't know if he got let go too soon, but his, I think, unwillingness to add veteran talent around Cade in his first couple years hurt the development. And it's maybe not his fault they got Monty Williams. I think that could come down on ownership a little bit. But I think what Trent Langdon did, getting these veterans, I mean, it would have been cool if they ended up with like, I mean, Zach LaVine, I guess, would have been a little short-sighted, like a little bit too aggressive too soon, right? Like getting Schroeder gives you still cap flexibility going forward. They're going to have a ton of money this offseason. If they want to be in like the Naz Reid, John Collins, Miles, any of those sweepstakes, Schroeder has an expiring deal. I'd like to see him back here. And I think this has been a very good pickup for the Pistons so far, and will be an upgrade over Marcus Sasser in a playoff series, at least for this year. And yeah, you add in like what Cade, Asar, Duran's been doing on both ends, and then you have Malik Beasley turning into 2016 Steph Curry. It's been fun to watch Pistons basketball again. Now, Miami, they ended up making a massive trade, and a smaller trade that's maybe been a little bit better. They traded away Jimmy Butler to the Golden State Warriors. They could have had Dennis Schroeder, and have they watched Terry Rozier? I mean, maybe there's a luxury tax thing I'm not getting right now, or I'm just missing, which probably is like, why wouldn't you want just Dennis Schroeder? He's an expiring deal over Terry Rozier as your point guard or backup point guard for the rest of the year, because Rozier's been terrible, and I know they don't have a ton of roster spots, but man, I'd rather have him on the team than like Alec Burks, or Kyle Anderson. Either way, the big name they got back was Andrew Wiggins, who's only appeared in 6 games for the Miami Heat. He's averaging 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists, shooting 37% from the field and 28% from 3. Is currently dealing with an ankle injury. And in those 6 games, the Miami Heat, let me just double check their record. They have 4 losses. So they are, no, they have, okay, so they're 2-4 in those games with Andrew Wiggins. I think it was like tough to watch him gel into the system as he got acquired. Like, he didn't get off to a good start in Miami, and it's such a small sample size for Andrew Wiggins, so I'm not really going to make any overreactions to his game specifically. He just turned 30 years old the other week, and he is under contract for the next 2 years after this year. $28 million contract next year, $30 million player option in 27. Maybe that's down the line, a Gordon Hayward situation 2.0. He opts out. Maybe he gets $60 million or $50 million over 3 years, and he's like, all right, I'm getting $50 million left in my career. I made a lot of money. So yeah, I think Wiggins in the long term is probably, like, I don't think I would bet he's a Heat, at least after next year's trade deadline. I think if they do actually go after Kevin Durant, he would be a main financial asset to get that done. I think for the Heat's sake, I hate to always say this because I always want teams to compete, but this team is not making it out of round 1. I'm sorry, but no matter who they play, I think they lose in round number 1, the way that this playoff seeding is lined up, because they're 6 games behind Detroit. They're not lapping them. But even if they play Detroit, Indiana, Milwaukee, or New York in round 1, I would take them to lose. So right now, they're either going to get Cleveland or Boston. That is going to be an easy sweep or gentleman's sweep, and they're going to be sent home in round number 1, and they don't get their draft pick. And honestly, the way this Heat team is right now, and if you're serious about getting Kevin Durant in the offseason, you're probably going to be expected to pick in the 20s next year. You can't tell your players to lose on purpose. They're trying to either get roster spots, trying to make money on another deal, or they're just trying to compete. These guys are competitors. You really can't tank on purpose if your team is healthy. But I think Miami would be wise to let Atlanta and Orlando get those play-in tournament spots, and you end up with a lottery pick, and you get to keep it. Because if they make the playoffs, that pick goes to OKC. I'd much rather Miami pick number 14 or 13, and you can land somebody like a Jeremiah Fears, a Ben Seraph, maybe to Lee McNeely or Derek Queen, or just somebody like that at the late lottery. Man, Jace Richardson would be fun, because I think if you are going to get a little bit more creative this offseason and a little bit more aggressive, I'd rather you lose your pick next year going forward. Because if you look at their future payroll, I mean, Bam and Hero getting paid. Bam's about to get paid a ton of money. I don't know if that's going to turn into a little bit of an overpay, but he's their guy. You have to pay Rozier $26 million next year for one of the worst rotational guys this year. Duncan Robinson, I think that contract is not fully guaranteed. They could save $10 million on that. But so yeah, they can save a little bit of money if they waive him, but you got to pay Kyle Anderson. Like, they low-key have some bad contracts on this team. So if you can maybe package them with some draft capital, and hey, you have your lottery pick this year, Phoenix could be more inclined to have the 12th overall pick this year. Then God knows what that pick could be next year if Kevin Durant is on the Miami Heat. And right now it looks like the Golden State Warriors are going to make the playoffs. So you're going to get a pick in the late teens, early 20s, which there's still some value in the draft there. You can get somebody really good, you could take a flyer on a Rasheer Fleming. I don't know if he falls that far, but Danny Wolf could be there. I like the idea of maybe taking a flyer on Will Riley or Carter Bryant if they do declare. But I think an impactful pickup for the Heat at the deadline has been Davion Mitchell, who's been so much better than Terry Rozier. Davion Mitchell is averaging 10 points, 4.5 assists, 1.2 steals, 54, 48, 72 splits since he got acquired. Like yet again, it's a small sample size, but I think they found something in Davion Mitchell, and I think Davion Mitchell just screamed he caught your guy, and it's cool to see. Like, I just recorded a 2021 regrade on my Srosh channel, and I gave that pick, I think it was a D plus or C minus for Sacramento. It didn't work out in the top 10. There was a lot worse picks that went after them, but hey, there was a tier before them that they kind of got not a chance to select. But he is a free agent at the end of the year. I'd like to see him back in Miami, especially if they are going to move off some of those veteran contracts this offseason. But this pickup has been great for them so far for what it acquired, what it got them. And maybe they didn't want Schroeder and Mitchell, and they were, I think, all included in this deal. Yeah, this deal is massive to look back on. Yeah, so I guess it's basically Schroeder or Mitchell. And you know what? I think I'd rather have Mitchell for this team right now. So, you know what? Going back on the Schroeder thing, I guess it makes sense. Atlanta making that DeAndre Hunter trade. I mean, I didn't really get their deadline at the time. They don't own their draft pick, but hey, they weren't going to own their draft pick if they won games. They weren't going to own it if they lost games. Who cares what pick you give up in the draft? I guess that's a way to look at things, but if you end up getting a top 4 pick with your pick, I'd feel a little bit sick if you gave San Antonio a Cooper Flagg, an Ace Bailey, a Dylan Harper. But this team, honestly, LeVert's been very good for them. And I would re-sign LeVert in the offseason for this team. I think it just adds another scoring wing. I feel like the last 4 years, the Hawks have dealt with so many injuries, so I would try to have as much depth as possible. Terrence Mann has been really good in the 11-game sample size for the Nets, for the Hawks so far, and they played every game like LeVert and Mann, which is nice. They made the Bogdanovich trade, so they're 5-6 over their last 11. I think they should try to make the playoffs though, and I think they give them a chance. I don't know why Clint Capella was still on this team. Maybe nobody wanted him, which makes sense. Dyson Daniels has still been good. Reece Shea has been great over the last few weeks. It just sucks. Jalen Johnson ended up getting injured, but I think I'm coming around on the Mann trade. I'm not really coming around on the DeAndre Hunter trade because LeVert gives them a chance to win now, but so did DeAndre Hunter. And Hunter was under contract. And you can maybe revisit that idea in the offseason. George Niang's been kind of good as well in this trade. George Niang, sorry. But he's shooting 40% from 3 on 7 attempts, averaging 14 points. Not a great defender, but hey, it's somebody out there that's been playing and at least wants to win, and he is a competitor. He is under contract for next year as well. So Atlanta got a little bit healthier at the deadline, which maybe was what they were going to try to do. I'm going to briefly talk about them, but Orlando, they didn't make any moves, and this is one of the worst offenses to watch every night. You guys saw me talk about Paolo Banchero in the last episode. He's coming around a little bit, and then I tweeted out in the first half against the Bulls that he's really coming around. And then I don't know if he hit a single shot after I tweeted that out. He maybe only hit free throws and he missed the game winning 3. But yeah, I wish the Magic added a shooter. I'm not saying Bogdanovich. Could they have gotten George Niang? Maybe. Just anybody that can hit threes, because this is the worst offense to watch right now in the league. And shout out to Cole Anthony. He's given them some good reps this year and some good games. Franz is doing all he could. Paolo's so young. I don't know. It's just a tough offense to watch right now, and they've had their fair share of injuries. Chicago, they ended up trading away Zach LaVine. I kind of hate all their additions. Zach Collins has been fine. He's just getting touches there, maybe better than Jalen Smith. I think Kevin Huerter has been not really too much fun to watch. I don't know what happened to him, man, from the Atlanta Hawks days. Trey Jones, I also don't enjoy too much. I mean, Bulls fans may disagree. He's kind of hit or miss for me at times, if I like him on both ends. But I think from the deadline, I was also going to put Kobe White in that disappointing video, and I'm glad he didn't, because he had an electric 44-point game against the Magic, and that was a really fun game. But I think 2 players have been fun since the deadline. Josh Giddey has been on a tear. Hopefully he's fully healthy now. I know he missed a little bit of time before the Magic game, but he's the guy that's going to flirt with a triple-double every night. And the Bulls are going to be bad for the next 3 years. I would re-sign Josh Giddey. I'm not giving him $35 million a year, but if it's $25 million a year for the next 3 years, I would give him that. You gave Patrick Williams $90 million, and he kind of sucks. So I think I'd rather just give Giddey, give him $80 million over 3 years, and you're going to draft some bigs and wings, some young guys that could really use at least a veteran in his way, 4 years in the league. Sure. as an initiator throughout your rebuild, I would re-sign Giddey this offseason. And Matas has shown some flashes. He had a nice crossover. Was it on Carter Jr. or Goga? It might have been on Goga, but it was really smooth, and he's been efficient over his last couple of games, and I'm high on Matas a little bit more than I was with the G League Ignite. So I think the Bulls, I mean, just want to lose games, and then you hope the lottery balls go your way. You could say that for a lot of these teams. Brooklyn didn't trade Cam Johnson. Does Brooklyn know they may end up with the 9th overall pick? They almost beat the Warriors. They were up by 20. They have lost a lot of games as of late, but they got Cam Thomas back. He's going to probably try to help them be competitive. I don't know. I would just say, like, the Nets, you don't want to be the Utah Jazz of 2 years ago where they basically, like, let me pull up their record. The Jazz, the year after they traded away Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert, so it would have been that 2023 season, they were kind of good. 37-45. You end up with Hendricks, Keontae, George, and Sensabaugh. George and Sensabaugh, yes. But imagine you had a Men Thompson or Sar Thompson or Brandon Miller or who knows, maybe Victor Wembanyama. You would like that instead. Last year, they go 31-51, and they end up with Cody Williams. Now, Isaiah Collier has looked great, but Cody Williams, yet again, you could have been picking there in the top 5, and imagine you had Stephon Castle on your team. I'm just saying, like, this is probably the right year for the Jazz to bottom out. I just don't want the Nets to not bottom out right now, and then, I don't know, you end up with Con Knipple, you end up with Derek Queen, you end up with a Jeremiah Fears, very fun and high potential prospects, but you may lose out on one of the blue chippers because you've been too competitive this year. I don't know. It's just, like I said back with the Heat, these players are they're trying to earn an extra contract. They're trying to showcase that they could be in the league for a long time. And I 100% agree with that. And Jordy Fernandez is going to coach to win. But at some point, you're going to have to realize you're kind of being too competitive. I mean, Philly, they made a couple small moves at the deadline, but the notable one was Quentin Grimes. I think it's been a home run. Quentin Grimes has looked fantastic. I mean, that Timberwolves game was maybe more impressive than the 44-point performance against the Warriors. He's going to be asked to do a lot, and there's going to be some bad shooting nights because he's never really been in this role before. But you hope if you're the Sixers, you're in the playoffs next year, he's going to be a huge rotational guy and role player for you outside of Embiid and Maxey next year. Toronto, I don't know. Ingram, like, I don't know. It's just, we're not going to see Ingram maybe this year. I'm not sure. I mean, Darko Rajakovic said he's still rehabbing. I don't think we're going to see Ingram this year, which means we're going to miss out on like a 20-game sample size of him and Scotty playing together and building up chemistry. So I don't know how that's going to look next year. I don't know where they're going to finish in the lottery. You had another wing. This team is going to get very interesting very soon. I mean, for a player of his caliber, I mean, he should have gone for a lot more, but the Pelicans traded him maybe a year too late. That extension is interesting as well, as he's going to be making $40 million for the next 3 years after this year. I'm just saying we got to wait and see on it before I make any assumptions, but I wish we got to see him play this year. Charlotte, they almost made the Mark Williams trade. I like the Nurkic trade for them getting a first. I may have a LaMelo Ball episode dedicated to him soon because I wonder where they head going forward. But Washington, I kind of love their deadline. I did. I think just getting Marcus Smart and Chris Middleton are going to do wonders on this locker room's, like, just the locker room and having some veteran leadership, something they really haven't had. And maybe it gets Malcolm Brogdon in line, right? Like, I don't know if Malcolm Brogdon was supposed to be the leader for this team, and he's been in and out of the lineup. And I mean, Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma were the locker room leaders because his team was so young, and it's like the last thing you want. And Jordan Poole has cooled off as of late, but I know they beat another terrible team in the Jazz, but that was just a fun game to watch where Keyshawn, Sar, and Bub all played well, the rookies. And having like Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart, guys that actually give a shit, try on defense, are going to look for the open man offensively and not just chuck up 40 shots or 20 shots a night. It's just amazing to have. And I think Washington had a very good deadline. I think they hopefully get rewarded with Cooper Flagg or Dylan Harper. I mean, every draft lottery, the number one pick or the worst team usually falls. So I'm hoping for you Wizards fans. So that was kind of just like my Eastern Conference takes. OKC didn't make any moves at the deadline. They acquired, was it Daniel Tice and waived him? Either way, they're cooking. They didn't need to make any moves. I mean, the Lakers, they traded for Luka Doncic, who got off to an inefficient start, but he's had some very good games as of late against the Clippers, against the Pelicans in terms of efficiency. I mean, he wasn't super efficient against the Knicks, but he still impacts the game in so many different ways as a playmaker, as a guy that's going to draw so much attention. I only watched the first half, though. I didn't watch the second half, so I don't want to make any takes on that. But yeah, you got a 26-year-old global superstar for, I mean, like, everyone's talked about this trade so much since it happened. I still can't believe he's a Laker. I really can't. It's incredible, and I wonder where their ceiling is going to be in the playoffs now with him. Denver didn't make any moves. Owners are kind of cheap, so not really that surprised. Memphis did make some moves technically, but I don't really know. They traded away Laravia and Marcus Smart to basically free up some money, and they had to attach a first-round pick to get off the Smart contract. Disagree with that. I think Aldama's been great. I mean, I want to see Ja healthy. A lot of these guys have stepped up this year. I wonder if, like, a team that had so many assets as they did decided to kind of just part with some assets at the deadline. Like, I know Marcus Smart is going to save you some money against the luxury tax. I don't know, though. You eat his $20 million this year. Kind of sucks, but in the offseason, an expiring $21 million could go a long way in a trade. So I kind of disagree with that. And you had to touch a first-round pick to get off of him. And I don't know how much say he has in the locker room with John Morant there. But Smart is a veteran. He's been in big moments before. I would at least like to have that presence in the locker room. But once again, I'm not in the locker room. I don't know. I just think Memphis could have did something. Houston, I think they could have did something as well. I tweeted out, I wonder if they regret not making a move when they were down by double digits, or they were down by decent amounts to the Pelicans, but they ended up winning that game. It was a good game. I was able to watch a little bit of it. That Şengün like steal, and then he falls to the ground and transition. It's just like fun to watch this team at times, but I wonder if they didn't peak too early. But I mean, if they're first round exit, hey, you're fine with that. You're just happy you're getting Rockets playoff basketball, something we haven't seen since 2020 with Russ and Harden. So, yeah, I think they've had some bad moments. You're fine with being a first round exit for this team and its young core going forward. I would have liked to add a cheap shooter at the deadline. Easier said than done, but I mean, I don't want that Kevin Huerter contract. I'm just thinking of like somebody could have got rerouted to Houston. I mean, Golden State, it's funny because Jimmy Butler has been, I think, like, good. He hasn't been great since they acquired him. Like, he's been good, which I think is what you take. The reason why the Warriors have been incredible, one, I mean, you got to look at the strength of schedule. They haven't had the best competition, but hey, they've had some very impressive wins. Don't get me wrong. Like, beating the Knicks, even without Cat, is impressive on the road. Like, that Philly loss was bad. Like, I don't know. Since they've acquired Jimmy, like, let's look at the games Jimmy's played in and who they beat. So I don't want to make any overreactions. I don't think the Warriors are going to win the NBA Finals right now until I see them play a little bit tougher competition. But they beat Chicago. They beat Milwaukee. Let me see. I forget if Giannis played in this game. Back on February 8th. Oh my God, this is annoying. They won by, 14 points. Did Giannis play in this game? No. So they beat the Bucks without Giannis. Let's see what else we got here. Dallas, they beat Dallas without Anthony Davis. Or no, excuse me, they lost to Dallas without Anthony Davis. They beat Houston. That is an impressive win. Like Amen wasn't hurt for this game. Yeah. They were healthy for the most part. Van Vliet, I mean, didn't really matter too much. They beat Sacramento. Good win for sure. Beat Dallas, banged up Dallas. Beat Charlotte. Beat Orlando, who can't shoot at all. Jimmy had 5 points in that game. Lose to Philly. Okay, Jimmy didn't play in that Philly game. Damn, I forgot about that. But they beat Charlotte. They beat the Knicks without Cat, and they were down by like 25 to Brooklyn. So all I'm saying is I would like to see them play a little bit better competition, which will come before I can list them as a title contender. But the main reason why they've been so good since the Jimmy Butler trade, I think, is for kind of one specific reason, and it's because Steph Curry has turned into prime Steph Curry again. Like, pre-All-Star break, I was a little worried about Steph. And like, I didn't think he was going to be like an all-star deserving guy. And like, he's taking a step back. No, this is like a rejuvenated Steph. I don't know if it's like he's healthier now. Over Steph's last 14 games, 31 points, 6 assists, 48% from the field, 41% from 3 on 13 attempts, and 91% from the line. That is 2016 Steph Curry numbers, 2015 Curry numbers, 2017 Curry numbers. He's been incredible. And they don't even have Kuminga. So I'm excited to see this team at full strength. I hope they can compete for a title. It's more entertaining if we can get a Curry like final stretch that they can perform. But I just want to hold off saying they're a title contender until we see an impressive like competitive stretch of games. Minnesota really couldn't make any moves because of the apron. The Clippers acquired Bogdan. Like, I didn't mind that for them, but man, his shot, like, it felt like it was cooked in some of these games. He had a really good shooting night against the Pistons. I mean, that was like the Harden game, right? Where Harden dropped 50. Was that the game that, yeah, right? That was the game that Harden dropped 50. Either way, I mean, they really couldn't do much at the deadline either. They had limited assets. So I think them getting off the man money long-term probably helps them so they can open up a little bit more financial flexibility. We'll see, though. They've fallen a little bit in the standings, so we'll see. I think they're going to be like a play-in tournament playoff team. I don't think they get a top 6 spot. Sacramento, I mean, we haven't seen too much of Sabonis and Levine because Sabonis recently got hurt. Levine, he had a really nice stretch last week, but he's just been like a consistent 20 point per game scorer guy for them since they acquired him. He had that 42 game output against the Hornets, 32 against the Pelicans in that loss. But yeah, I mean, I think the defense at times is a little bit questionable for this team as a whole because they're not a great defensive team. I mean, Valanciunas looks like a very good pickup right now because he's had some really good games since becoming the starter after Sabonis being banged up. And yeah, I just kind of want to see this team play a little bit more. What is their record in their last like 12 games? So in the last 12 games, the Sacramento Kings are 7-5. I mean, they just got to play at that pace and they're going to be a playing tournament. Like, I don't think they're a top 6 seed, but I think they're going to at least be in the playing tournament. Dallas. I mean, I've talked about them plenty. I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, it sucks Kyrie Irving tears his ACL. AD might not come back this year. Gafford and Lively. I mean, I've talked plenty about this team. The Quentin Grimes trade looks questionable. It just makes me sad. I've seen plenty of people on Twitter that are Mavericks fans say, like, I haven't really watched a game since the trade, and I've watched this team religiously for the last 25 years. And I feel you, man. I actually, like, thinking about that, I don't think I would watch a game for a little bit. I don't think I would. I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, I haven't really had a sports moment like this. I used to be so into the Steelers, and then since Ben, I've been like, I mean, I'm watching them, but I mean, I'm not religiously like upset if they lose a game. I mean, like I will be upset, but not as much as I used to. Like, especially if they lost in the playoffs. The Knicks, I mean, they've been so bad for so long. After they traded Kristaps, I was a little bit upset, but then you get into the stages of grief, and you're like, oh, this could actually be okay, and you're coping a little bit. I mean, the Mets. No, I mean, they've just been so bad and so cheap and Cohen, it's been fine. So I haven't really, sorry, Mavericks fans, I can't really say that I know what you're going through, just because of that specific reason. But I think what you can always say is I hope you were able to remember the 2011 title team. It sucks you guys didn't win it all with Luka. But if you're old enough to remember that you got that ring, that's something I've never seen from the Mets or the Knicks. I saw it with the Steelers, but I was 6 and 9 years old, so I don't really remember too much. I remember bits and pieces. But yeah, if you're like young enough, like say you're 16 and you barely remember that, oh man, I feel bad. Sorry, I don't really have I've enjoyed watching Max Christie. I mean, Kai Jones played well in his first game there. There's just not a lot to say for this team. They played 23 different guys this year. I think you hope to miss the play-in tournament. I think so. I think you hope Phoenix passes you, and then you just pray the lottery gods give you something. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll do a Mavericks dedicated thing on where they can go going forward. I did just record a rebuild off them too, so I talked a lot about their future there. Phoenix, I mean, they traded away a first-round pick to basically get off the use of Nurkic money. Now, that can allow them to get under the second apron, but they've been really disappointing as well. Over their last 12 games, they were 4-8. I mean, even if they make the play-in tournament, I mean, maybe they could beat the Clippers and the Kings if that's how it aligned, and you can end up as the 8th seed, but is this team doing anything against OKC? Probably not. I think you're okay with that, though. It helps that you're giving Houston the 15th pick rather than a top 10 pick, which it looks like it could happen right now. I actually want to give some love to Bradley Beal on defense. I actually think he's gotten better this year. I don't know why, but he has been in and out of the lineup, and for the amount of money he's getting paid, it just sucks. I'd rather him be consistently in the lineup and not take some games off. Booker's been better after the weird start. I mean, KD and him are still incredible, but this team is just not good enough to compete, and you had to rely on Colin Gillespie to beat the Clippers the other night in a game that Kawhi Leonard did play. But I don't know. I just think the Suns, your best case scenario is a first-round exit, and Kevin Durant looks phenomenal in that first-round exit, and you're able to get still a semi-good package, at least like 2 first-round picks and some player that you can at least incorporate around Booker, 1 first-round pick and 2 players. Like, are you excited about, let's say the Heat end up with like the 14th pick. You get the 14th pick, you get the 20th pick via Golden State, you get Wiggins, and you get Jovic. Like, how do you feel about that? I don't know. Portland, they've been so much fun to watch, but they didn't make any moves at the deadline, which they moved Robert Williams. Not the end of the world. San Antonio, probably one of the last teams we talk about. De'Aaron Fox has actually been kind of inefficient since he got acquired by the Spurs, and I think a big question was like, how does this floor spacing work around Wemby with Castle and Fox, 2 negative 3-point shooters at the moment? Vassell and Keldon Johnson kind of been inconsistent this year, and Sohan just not really shooting a ton. How does that team look around Wemby? Fox is in your long-term plans. I think Fox is a good player for $34, $37 million, but when he's eligible to sign a massive deal, it's funny because if Fox was playing a little bit better, actually, no, he can't get the Supermax because he got traded. But Fox is going to be making $40+ million, $50+ million. How do we feel about that? We're going to look at him a little bit differently. But I just want to see him with Wemby throughout, hopefully, a full season sample size next year to make any more assumptions on him and that team. But they're in a good spot going forward. Utah didn't make any trades, so I'm not really going to talk about them. But they're fun. Like, even though they lost that Wizards game, it's just fun to watch, like, Collier out there, and Keontae George was hurt, but like Bryce Sensabaugh out there, Walker Kessler, and Filipowski's been playing good basketball. I mean, they don't really have like a blue chip long-term asset like, I don't know how you feel about LaMelo, or I mean, the Wizards maybe don't have like a blue chipper. Like at least the Pelicans have Zion, at least the Sixers have like Maxey, right? The Raptors have Scotty, the Magic have Paolo. I think the Jazz are still trying to find that guy. Maybe it's going to be Cooper. So the Pelicans traded Ingram a little bit too late. Olynyk's been good, but I mean, how much does Olynyk give you next year when he's going to be 34? Bruce Brown, I mean, I think maybe him playing bad is a good thing for them because one, it can help you lose games, and two, you can get him back on a much better extension. Like, say you give Bruce Brown 3 for 30, 3 for 27, 3 for 20. Like, he's not making what he made. I mean, like, shout out to him getting paid $45 million. Shout out to the Raptors picking up his team option because they think they could use him in a trade, which they did, and that earned Bruce Brown $20 million more than he probably would have made on the open market or something like that. But he hasn't been great. But I'm excited to see this team fully healthy next year because they got assets galore. And, I mean, they're an interesting team to watch this offseason because there's the Zion question, right? He's finally healthy at the moment, and he's playing like a top 15 guy in this league. He's going to be 25 years old in a couple months. Does the value get this high again? Because I believe the team that acquires him, so they got to pay $40 million next year, 42 and then 44 million. God forbid he just stays or he's unhealthy for the next 2 years. They can cut him, I believe, and they can absorb that part of the contract, and they can waive him for no financial hit. Now, you wouldn't want to do that if you're trading assets for him, but I'm just saying, like, the Pelicans, do you think the value gets this high again? Do you think this version of Zion, you could build a contending team around him right now? And does getting Cooper Flag in the lottery change your decision at all? And it's kind of like 80 2.0. We get somebody we can build around. We're fine moving off of the guy that's been here for a little bit. Or do you like, all right, or is your vision like Flag, Murphy, Zion? This team can compete next year, which that excites me. I want to see this team compete. But DeJounte Murray's going to miss the start of the year, so maybe if they don't get Flag, Dylan Harper could be a great pick for them. I mean, McCollum can still give them good scoring outbursts at times, but he's going to be 34 years old next year. I love Herb Jones, or excuse me, Yves Missi is a rookie. It sucks Herb Jones has been banged up this year, and Jordan Hawkins as well, but these guys hopefully will be fully healthy and better next year, at least with their shot. And Trey Murphy, like, taking this offensive step, do you think, like, okay, like, him and Zion could really coexist, but it's just, how often are we going to see them playing together, right? So I think they have some big questions to ask in the offseason. I don't think we're going to get answers to those questions until after the draft lottery. But I'm really excited, and they're a team to definitely watch to see what direction they go in this offseason. So yeah, that is going to be it for me. I hope you guys did enjoy this. I guess I didn't really talk about like the Knicks, the Pacers. I don't think those teams needed to or really could have made decisions at the deadline just because of their financial situations. If you guys did enjoy this on YouTube, I'd appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know what you guys think about the trade deadline aftermath so far, about 10-ish games since this happened. And if you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, really appreciate a rating and review. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.